And welcome into Chasing Checkers, ESPN 102.5, The Game, streaming on the Game Nashville app. We're also on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all of those things. You can watch the show and listen to the show as well. I'm Chase McCabe, hoping you're having a great start to your Saturday morning as we're here every week at 9 o'clock. I want to start with a cool thing that I got to do this week. Went to an event for the Music City Grand Prix as they announced Big Machine. Big Machine, the music label, they have the vodka. Scott Borchetta announced Big Machine as the title sponsor of the Music City Grand Prix. So it is now the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix that will take place August 6th through the 8th in our city on the streets of downtown. So pretty cool that they were able to do that. And a lot of racing coming to Nashville. Of course, this show is presented by the Nashville Super Speedway. You can get your tickets by calling 1-866-RACE-TICKS or going to NashvilleSuperspeedway.com. Father's Day weekend, June 18th, 19th, and 20th, the Ally 400 weekend, so you can check that out. But really cool to go to an event for the Music City Grand Prix. So I hope you're having a great Saturday morning. I don't know about all of you, but the allergies have been rough on me this week. So I have been dealing with that, and I apologize for how I may sound today, but we're going to get through it. So let's get after it and talk about some things going on in the off week. And the big thing, starting with allergies and sickness and COVID, I noticed over the week as the drivers did their media availability, Bob Pockris of Fox Sports asked several the question of, opening back up, opening the garage area back up, whether it's to sponsors or to fans, what have you, how comfortable they are with all of that. And it gave me the idea for a topic because it is something that we need to talk about. I mean, I think we're close. I think we're very close to that, where people are going to be able to go into the garage again. If you've never done it, if you've never been to a NASCAR race and experienced it from the pits and being able to walk through the garage, it's cool because it is the only sport really that, if you think about it, that allows you to do that as a fan. Like, you get to go in the middle of where they're working. And I think that is something really neat that NASCAR and racing in general allows you to do. So I think that's something that the fans have missed, and they're slowly letting fans back into the racetrack. But what does that mean? You got to start somewhere. I want to start with this though. Jeff Gordon, who's a Fox Sports analyst now, former driver, and NASCAR has done a fantastic job with their protocols. They have not had a ton of cases. We know last year that Jimmy Johnson had it, Austin Dillon. But Jeff Gordon was on Sirius XM NASCAR radio earlier this week, and he revealed that during the off week, he tested positive for COVID-19.
Can't say my off week was great, unfortunately, because I tested positive for COVID last week. So been in quarantine. But the good news is it was smooth and I had minimal symptoms and good to go for Martinsville this weekend.
You sound fine. I'm glad to hear you're doing okay in the midst of quarantine. Does it make the pandemic, Jeff, more real once you find out that you have it? What are some of the things that go through your mind, and will it impact your job at all? Do you think you'll be ready to go and call the race again at Martinsville this weekend?
It's certainly been a big learning curve about all the discussions that I've had with doctors and trying to understand it, and the more you try to understand it, the more confusing it seems to get, because like I said, I've been very fortunate where my symptoms were very minimal. I took all the precautions. I was very fortunate that my family, my wife, my kids did not get it. So it's just one of those things where I've just been trying to educate myself and understand it, but I know that there's people that have it much. And I also got my first round of vaccine about 7 days before I tested. So I don't know if that played a role. I'm looking forward to getting the final dose of the vaccine. I'm a big proponent of mask and vaccination and protecting ourselves. So it's unfortunate that this happened, but I'm fortunate at the same time that I've been able to get through it as smoothly as I can and be ready to go for this weekend.
Go. Jeff Gordon of Fox Sports on with Danielle Trotta and Larry McReynolds of Sirius XM. So that's you hear him. He's all about getting the vaccine. He got it, but I mean, as you can see, he's in the middle of the process and still comes down with it. And that's something that NASCAR has to be aware of. I mean, they've been aware of it. They know that throughout all of this, it could potentially happen. But as you let more and more people in, you have to go through the process of, are you going to only let vaccinated people in? Are you going to give people the choice? Are you going to just say, all right, we're going to keep these protocols in place to try and keep everybody safe? That is the challenge that is ahead of NASCAR. But I do believe that it's going to be good for the sport to start letting more and more people in as we learn to live with this and things get better and we learn more about it. That's where I believe NASCAR is at. So how do the current drivers feel about all of this? Are they ready to have more and more people going throughout the garage area? Brad Keselowski, who is never short on opinions, was asked about it by Bob Pockers.
Everybody's standard is different. So I can only speak to my standard, which might not be a shared standard, and I'm going to be the first to recognize that. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm comfortable just going, open it up, let's go. So not everybody might be in that same spot, but I'm 100% comfortable to get back to normal.
Go. There you go. Brad Keselowski is ready to go. He's ready to rock. And I do kind of feel like, number one, Brad is always really good about saying, hey, this is my opinion. Somebody else might disagree, but this is how I feel. And so I've always respected that about him. But, I feel like a lot of the drivers are getting that way. Because think about this. The hardest part for the drivers have been being away from their families. I know it's gotten a little bit, for certain things, you've seen them be able to have their families a little bit. But, it's not like it has been, with the kids running around the car before, they start them up and the wives being there. So it's certainly been difficult from that standpoint on the drivers. But I feel like a lot of the drivers are kind of getting to that. Here's what WILLIAM.BYRON had to say about it.
I mean, I'll go with whatever's comfortable with how we approach it. I mean, I feel fairly comfortable, as is right now. I think that, the protocols and things are working well. So, I think it's going to be a gradual thing, but, I think you see it through all sports right now. It's kind of, getting more and more fans around, whether, having them masked, but being able to have them around. So that's kind of how I'm good with it. If people have masks on and, I think it's working towards the right direction.
Cool. I think that's what we still have to do. I mean, just, for a while, keep wearing the mask, keep, especially if you're at someone's event and that's what they're asking you to do. I've said this about Predators games, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, it doesn't really matter. That's if you want to go to a game, if you want to go to a race, that's what they're asking you to do. So you have to do that. And you hear the drivers, you see the drivers doing it. I know they have set some things up where, like for interviews, they have the glass in place, the plexiglass, where they're not having to keep it on all the time for interview purposes, and so they have those different things that I think are fine. But it's just, I agree with the drivers. It's time to open things up. It's time to allow more fans in as we move on and get some of the revenue back into the sport. And a lot of the sponsors, they get to do all this stuff on race weekend where they're in the infield and they have hospitality things. I was talking to somebody this week that they do a lot of on-track activation at the track activation, and these businesses have not been able to do that. And in many ways, that's cost them some revenue. So the drivers are cognizant of that because they know that that a lot of that revenue goes into the race team. And yes, the big race teams have been able to make it through this, but the smaller guys haven't. We're going to talk to Justin Marks a little later on in the show. He is the co-owner of Trackhouse Racing Team, a new racing team. And while they do have resources, there's still some things that, with the economy the way it's been, obviously they want to get things going again. So I certainly understand that. So hopefully very, very close to opening the garage. Because I know, I told you last week about my trip to Bristol where I didn't get to do anything. I was going to only be able to go to the press box. That was unusual for me. Since I've been covering races, I usually watch from the pits and the media center and wander around. And like I said, that's one of the coolest things. I can do that as a media member, but so can you if you get a pit pass. That's one of the coolest things about NASCAR is being able to do that. So hopefully things are getting closer and closer to getting back to normal. When we come back, we know they're at a short track this weekend. They were just at Bristol. They're at Martinsville tonight. It's very rare that we get to do the show on a race day. Unfortunately, the Xfinity race got postponed until Sunday, and weather could be an issue, so they may not get it in tonight. We'll see what happens. But we're going to talk about short tracks and people's love of short tracks, and I'm going to even give you my short track season schedule, how I would want it to go. We will do that when we come back here on Chasing Checkers, ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Welcome back in, Chasing Checkers, ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming on the Game Nashville app as well. Chase McCabe here with you every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. You can also hear me on Darren Donick and Chase weekdays 10 to 2. So there you go. There's my plug. Talking some short tracks. And I put this out on Twitter earlier today at Chasin_Checkers. If you could help NASCAR design a short track schedule, a short track season, which is something they really have. I mean, they still kind of have it with the 3 that they run, but they had it even more back in the day when they went to North Wilkesboro, came to Nashville, tracks like that. I look at it like this, and this is how I went into it, is if they can have 7 road courses on the schedule, why can't they have 7 or 8 short tracks? Because that's what people want. People want short tracks. People want the 7 road courses, and they want the 2 super speedways twice a year. The intermediate tracks are they have their place, obviously. I'm excited about the one out here at Nashville Super Speedway. Get your tickets now, 1-866-RACE-TICKS. This show brought to you by Nashville Super Speedway. But I think you have to continue the diversity of the schedule. So have, some of those intermediate tracks like the Super Speedway, Atlanta, Charlotte, Texas, Kansas, Michigan. Michigan's, I guess, a little different, 2 miles. Dover. Work those in. But if you stagger the schedule and you keep it at 36 races and you have 7 or 8 short tracks, 6, 7 road courses, something like that, maybe do a rotation of some of them out of your marquee events, I think the fans and the drivers would love that because that's what everybody has been clamoring for the last few years. And so, as I mentioned, a lot, like I said, a lot of the drivers love the short tracks. Brad Keselowski being one of those drivers, and he commented on why. First, 2 different clips. First, he commented on just short tracks in general and how many should be on the schedule and what the schedule should look like as a whole.
Yeah, I think those numbers still feel pretty reasonable to me. A street course to me is a road course. So unless it's a street oval, which I don't know if they even have those, but I still like those numbers. I'm really excited about, and I don't know what the update is on this, but I'm really excited about Fontana switching to a short track. I think that'll be really interesting. I'll miss the big track.
You want them back to back?
The cool track to run on,
No,
especially as it aged. It became one of the best racetracks on
I set up the wrong one.
That's all right.
But not as much as I think I'm going to enjoy seeing it turn into a short track. So I'm not aware of where that stands today, but that's one of the tracks obviously that we could pull from in a really important market. I would still like to see us find a way to run on a short track in Canada. I think that market is really strong for us and underutilized. I'm very excited about the Nashville Fairgrounds being picked up as well. I'm not fully aware of the timing or how exactly that's going to work with respect to what date it'll get. But seeing that, those three right there probably stand out to me as maybe some targets.
Go.
Brad Keselowski on the schedule as a whole, and with an emphasis on short tracks. And again, I have put this out on Twitter at Chasen_checkers, and I have just put it out from at 1025 the game as well. If you could design your short track season, what would you have on it? And before we hear from William.BYRON, I'll say this. The three that are there now are fantastic. I love Bristol. I'm even cool with the dirt. I would like to see, if they're going to race on dirt, maybe a dirt-only facility, whether they build one that has some of the amenities that Bristol does, or there's an investment into Eldora or another existing dirt facility. But I do consider, those are typically short tracks, so that could certainly fit into this. Martinsville, especially under the lights now that they finally put lights on it. Absolutely, give it to me. And Richmond, which is the bigger of the three. But those three are fantastic. Now we'll get to what I have on my short track silly season schedule in just a second. As I mentioned, most of the drivers love short tracks. Most of the drivers look forward to going to a Bristol or a Martinsville or a Richmond. But William.BYRON is one of those that he's still learning, and that's not necessarily his background. And they are challenging for some. And he talked about how short tracks typically go for him.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, honestly, we've had some really good short track races, but then we've had some issues with brakes and things, mechanical things. So trying to make sure that we make all that stuff last and not, make it to the end of the race is really important. So I think that's a big emphasis for us, but I feel like some of that is how your car's driving, but also just technique and, making sure that I'm taking care of my stuff throughout the early part of the race so I can have, something good at the end. So that's, I think that's all it is. Just kind of, when we've had good handling stuff, then we've done well, but you can't try to crutch it too much with brakes and stuff if you're not handling well.
Nope.
And that's a thing that drivers have to learn. These are endurance races. Whenever the our race car drivers athletes conversation comes up, go watch 500 laps at Bristol in the August heat. Go watch a super speedway race. Go watch a road course. These are endurance type races for these drivers. You have to be skilled, and your car has to, you got to take care of your car too, to get through these things. They're tough. Like you said, Martinsville this weekend, if they're able to run tonight, you're going to see a lot of brake rotors that are glowing red, and you're going to see some cars that have brake problems because you got to take care of your brakes. It's 500 laps. It's a half mile. It's fast, but you are getting on the brakes coming off those straightaways, going into a paperclip, hairpin turn. Maybe not quite a hairpin turn, but the paperclip. And so it is rough on the race car. So that's something that's difficult for some drivers to do. All right, so this is what I have on mine. If I were going to do a true short track season for NASCAR, and I would do more than the Cup Series. I want the Xfinity and the trucks. I love watching trucks, especially on a short track. No particular order here. Bristol, Martinsville, Richmond, stay on there. Nashville Fairgrounds for sure would be there. Then, and how I did this, these are tracks that are still standing, don't necessarily have to be in operation, but still standing and could feasibly be converted to NASCAR standards and work. So I understand could be some older tracks or don't host NASCAR, maybe have a weekly series, things like that. So I have Bristol, Martinsville, Richmond, Nashville. South Boston. If you've never seen a race from South Boston, that place is fun. Running it on iRacing is fun and also difficult. But you can see some great races there. So South Boston. in South Boston, Virginia, would be another one. Five Flags, where they have the Snowball Derby. That is one that I know a lot of racing fans love and would love to see more at. The Irwindale Speedway, which, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think is that old. I think it's relatively new. I could be wrong. But that's where a lot of the up-and-comers, running on short tracks, they run there. I think that it provides some good racing and is a lot of fun. Now we get into the pipe dream, I should say. North Wilkesboro is still standing. It's still sitting there. And Marcus Smith went on the Dale Jr. download last week, and he said the dream is not dead, which got Dale Jr. very excited, and it got me very excited. And he didn't necessarily mean that NASCAR would go there and the Cup Series would go there. That track needs a lot of work. It's been sitting there untouched for a long time and is falling apart. But the fact of the matter is it's still sitting there. It's still got a racing surface. Dale Jr. and his crew went and cleaned it up to scan it for iRacing. That's how they put it on iRacing. You would clearly have to rebuild, brand new grandstands and garage, whole new facility. But the infrastructure, the track is there, and you could make it happen. And I love North Wilkesboro. I think everybody loves North Wilkesboro. And if you're a new race fan and you've never watched a race from there, go look it up on YouTube. Go watch some of the old races from North Wilkesboro. 1996 was the last time that they ran at Wilkesboro, but I believe Jeff Gordon was the winner. But and it was in operation until 2011, doing some different things, and they closed it down. But in its heyday, seated about 40,000. I think that's all you need. You could build it back up to that. But it's 0.625 miles, so just over a half mile. I'd love it. It'd be so much fun to have that back on the schedule. Put lights on it. Because that's the other thing with this. I just feel like there's something about short track racing at night is what you need. And I feel like that's what a lot of people would want to see. So I would want to see a lot of these races at night. And then the other thing I would do is I would find a market and close to a city, a place that you could do it, that you'd be close to a city, and I'd build a new one. Build something unique. Don't just build Bristol. Don't just build a Richmond or a Martinsville. Find a way to make it unique. Whether you're, they're closing, they've closed Myrtle Beach. Build a D-shaped kind of Myrtle Beach clone or something like that. But build it close to a city where people are going to go out. It's going to have top-notch facilities, and you have something new mixed with old. You have a short track that's, you can, it'll get character as it gets older, but it's also state-of-the-art and brand new. I think that would be very beneficial for NASCAR and for racing to be able to do that. Because, like I said, I love short tracks. The fans love short tracks. The drivers love short tracks. Brad Keselowski went on to talk about even more of why he loves short tracks so much.
Oh, man. It's like I'm pumped. When we got out of Bristol, I left with a smile on my face, knowing we had Martinsville, we had Richmond. Those are two of my best racetracks. At Martinsville, we've been just so solid the last few times. And then Richmond was kind of a dominant race for us last fall. I was super disappointed that Richmond in the spring got canceled because of COVID, because I thought would be really good. But I'm looking forward to going back and hopeful to have the same success we had last fall. It's certainly a track that I've had circled. Jeremy Boland's my crew chief, and the whole team did such a great job preparing the car for that racetrack. So hopefully we can repeat.
Go.
There you go, Brad Keselowski on his love of short tracks. Spotter Tim on Twitter says, could list a few dozen, assuming we keep all the current ones on the Cup schedule. I'd start with the additions of, and we pretty much he had the Fairgrounds, South Boston, Five Flags, Thompson Speedway, Kern Raceway, Irwindale, Berlin Raceway, which is in Michigan, Colorado National Speedway, and Evergreen Speedway, which is in Washington. And so he listed a few. And that's, again, right there. And, he's a racing guy, and a lot of you that listen to the show, are racing fans. But those of you that are, that's even more important, because some of these tracks, these gems that, could be awesome. I'd love to see it. And I feel like with the way the trend that NASCAR is on and the people that are in charge, you probably are going to see it. You're going to see some tracks that at one point in time you thought there's no chance, there's no way that it'll ever happen, and it probably will. So I love it. I hope it happens more. We're going to talk more about Martinsville, but when we come back, Justin Marks, who is the co-owner of Trackhouse Racing Team, he's also an investor in the Grand Prix here in town, but we're going to talk to him about Team Trackhouse and his driver, Daniel Suarez. We'll do that when we come back here on Chasing Checkers, ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
We're back, Chasing Checkers, ESPN 102.5 The Game, ChasingCheckersRadio.com. Excited to talk to Justin Marks. He is co-owner of Trackhouse Racing. Of course, Daniel Suarez in that number 99, a heck of a run at the Bristol Motor Speedway on dirt. Was awesome to see him leading some laps and with a 4th place finish. But Justin, it's good to talk to you. Thanks for doing this today.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks for having me. It was a good week.
I know. Have you come down from the high yet? I know it's not a win, but you got to start somewhere, and being a new team and just a few months in to get a top 5 like that on a unknown with the dirt, I had to feel pretty good.
Yeah, I felt great. I've been telling people it's a little bit of a taste of kind of proof of concept. All of the pieces that we put together at Trackhouse Racing, our relationships, our people, our equipment, just everything we've done, I think we feel really, really good about, all that, putting us in a position to have runs like we did at Bristol. I didn't, it's an element of it is happened maybe a little quicker than I thought, and we're continuing to make sure that we're managing expectations. We all know that we can go to Martinsville next week or this weekend and not have a great run. So it's great. I think, it just gives everybody just more ability to believe, I think, in what we're capable of. So when we see Daniel going out there and, not only all the work we're putting in to bring great race cars to the racetrack, but when we go out there and can just witness Daniel, doing what he does with his talent, it just gets everybody excited about the future.
Daniel's one of those guys. I interviewed him a few years ago when I guess he was still at GIBBS, that, and watching him come up through the ranks, watching him win the Xfinity Series championship. It's like you said, the talent's there. It's just giving him the right pieces to work with, the right equipment to work with. So why was he identified as your driver as you started this, knowing that, it's been a rough couple of years for him bouncing around from GIBBS to Stewart-Haas and Gaunt Brothers?
Well, that's honestly one of the reasons that we hired him. I had on my whiteboard at the office sort of these core attributes when it came to really have a discussion about driver that I wanted our driver to have. And, one of those is, a driver that knows how to win. And we want a driver that has experience at the cup level, just because it's just such a different ballgame than any other series, than, Xfinity or trucks. It's incredible. So we wanted somebody that had the experience. We wanted somebody hungry that was just really, really wanted it badly. And Daniel just kind of checked all those boxes. He's raced in, he had 140 something starts in Cup when he signed to drive for us. He's raced for the big teams. He's raced in Cup, and he's got that experience. He knows how to win. But he had a very difficult year last year in that 96 car, and was running kind of 28th, 29th, 30th every week in old equipment. And he was working hard, and he got beat down a little bit, but he had kind of a chip on his shoulder. Like he believes in himself and wants to prove to the NASCAR Cup Series world that he can win at that level and he belongs there. And so he really just, as we kind of like laid out what those sort of, like I said, the attributes we wanted our driver to have, he was really the only guy left on the board at that point. So I called him, and I didn't beg him, but I called him and was like, I'm not taking no for an answer.
Oh, that's fantastic. And like we said, has a ton of talent. Now, another part of this with Team Trackhouse is your co-owner, Pitbull. Everybody knows him in the music world, but getting him involved in racing, and I think that's what's so cool about what's going on in the sport right now is you have MJ coming in as an owner, Pitbull coming in, the diversity and the fact that it's growing, the fan base is growing, and now you have it with the ownership as well. So how did that all come together?
Well, Armando's a race fan, and people didn't realize that, but he's been a race fan his whole life. He saw Days of Thunder when he was like 12 years old, and he's just always paid attention to racing. So the first time that we met and we talked about this, it was interesting because he was referencing scenes in Blink of an Eye, the documentary with Michael Waltrip, and kind of these other ones. And I was really sort of taken aback. I was like, man, Mr. Worldwide, like Miami guy, and kind of knowing the Dale Earnhardt story, intimately knows the birth story of NASCAR, the moonshine runners and how they used to soup up their cars to run from the police and all this stuff. And he knew all that. It was kind of amazing. But, so we didn't really make it unknown at all in the industry of what we were trying to achieve, what Trackhouse wanted to be. I wanted Trackhouse to be a brand that transcended the sport, a brand that was bigger than the owner, bigger than any one individual, and really could be something that is just looks and feels different than any NASCAR team has. And a big part of that too is our philanthropic efforts and kind of how we wanted to make an investment in STEM education for minority youth. And so through about 2 or 3 degrees of separation with our PR guy, Drew Brown, and Pam Miller, producer at Fox, Armando had been doing some promotional work with NASCAR, and it had gotten to him what Trackhouse was trying to be. And it's this new team and the only foreign-born champion in the history of NASCAR and kind of all this stuff. And it just really, he was already interested in trying to find a way to get more involved in the sport. But when he heard our story, what we were trying to do, he's like, get him down to Miami. I want to meet these guys. And so we flew down there for a day. A few days after Christmas, we went down there and sat in the back of a seafood restaurant in a private room in a meeting that was supposed to be about an hour or something like that. And we sat there all day. And by the time, it was time to catch our flights back home, he just was like, we're doing this deal. I love you guys. I love the message. And let's just figure out how to build it. And so it was very, very quick and it was very easy. And what I'm most excited about, he's been very involved. I mean, every day he's been talking to Daniel or talking to me and asking about the races. And it's just, he's been to a few races. So it's been a great relationship. And I think one that's going to give Trackhouse, like I said, the brand an opportunity to do a lot of really cool things beyond just what's on the racetrack.
We're talking to Justin Marks, co-owner of Trackhouse Racing Team in the NASCAR Cup Series. So as NASCAR continues its growth and conversations I've had with others, Steve O'Donnell being one of them, I mean, you can tell that they're wanting to grow this sport. They're wanting to grow it with the ownership, with different teams coming in like you guys have been able to do. And with this new car that is going to come out next year, it's going to be in some ways easier to do that. They're trying to cut the cost for the team owners and be able to have more and maybe even more manufacturers as they move on. So how important was it, even though you've jumped in now with the current car, but knowing that new car was coming, how did that make more sense to do this now?
Well, it's one of the reasons why we're doing it now is because, I've wanted to do this for a number of years, but just was never comfortable with the risk required jumping in at the way the sport's been the last few years. I mean, you have to, it's just gotten so expensive. What you have to do to be able to compete is a mountain that I just couldn't really climb on my own. So when I started hearing about this new car and about, just like you said, everything that NASCAR is doing and how much conviction they have about how they're trying to rewrite this sport a little bit and position this sport to be culturally relevant for a long time from here on out. When I heard all those things, it really, that's when the light bulb went off and I said, this is the time to come and do this. So, we were going to debut this year. The 2021 was the year we were going to debut no matter what. When the pandemic knocked the next gen car back a year, the model that we had built and how we're going to come into the sport still works for this car this year. I mean, we're not building a race shop. We're not, buying huge fleets of cars. We're not building a fab shop. It's the way that I envision the most fiscally responsible way to come into the sport is to help is to share some of the infrastructure that exists already in the sport. And so that's where our alliance with RCR comes in, is that, I went to those guys and they've got an operational capacity that's been built out to field 4 cars in the Cup Series, but they only have 2. So I went in and said, why don't you find a way? Here's a way for you to monetize the downtime and this investment that you've made. And it gives us an opportunity to be competitive right away. So where we're at now is we get to build this team in 2021, build our relationships, give Daniel, or learn what Daniel needs in a car, his relationship with Travis develops. We can do all this work. So when next gen comes at the end of this year, we're focused just on that car. We're not focused on trying to learn this new car and build a team at the same time. So sort of the cadence of this rollout over this first sort of 12 months of the team's life is I think really going to pay dividends down the road.
Yeah, I can't do this without mentioning Travis Mack, your crew chief. I mean, getting Daniel Suarez as a driver was a heck of a hire, but getting Travis Mack as a crew chief hire was a good one as well.
Well, the role of the crew chief, I believe, in NASCAR has changed a lot the last couple of years and is going to continue to change. 15, 20 years ago and beyond, these guys, they built these race cars with their hands, these crew chiefs, and they really built the setups. And so much of it now is done with engineering and simulation. And, in a lot of cases, the engineers will run setup scenarios through sim and then just sort of hand the setup, so to speak, to the crew chief. And so that's not to say that obviously taking of Travis's talent away, but what I really, really like about Travis is that he's such a great team leader and he's such a positive guy. And that's what we need, is somebody that can organize and motivate all the members of this team. And Daniel is so intense. He's so singularly focused and he is so intense. And Travis is like always smiling, let's have fun, guys. And so the combination of those two is really, you're seeing that with kind of what we're doing on the racetrack right now, is that that was always my goal, was to find a pairing of people that can motivate each other, that can help each other's weaknesses, empower each other, just all that. And I think the combination with Travis and Daniel does that really, really well. Travis is like Daniel in that he's young and he's hungry, and he believes in his heart of hearts that he is capable of leading a race team to victory lane in the Cup Series. And so, it was another guy that I went after pretty hard. I just loved his personality. I loved his drive. And obviously he was with Hendrick for a long time and still stayed in the Hendrick family. And just the way that Hendrick does things, to be able to bring that kind of experience to Trackhouse is incredibly valuable.
Well, I know one thing, really like what you guys are building there at Trackhouse, and wish you nothing but the best moving forward. Build off that 4th place finish at Bristol and go from there. But appreciate you taking the time today.
Chance, right after we did this interview, I went over to an event that the Grand Prix had, and I got to talk to Justin a little bit more. So really cool guy, and just loves racing. So I appreciate having him on, and I think that they have something special there with Trackhouse Racing. I think with the right stuff, and Daniel Suarez is one of those guys. If he has the right stuff, I think you're going to see them do some good things in NASCAR and beyond. So cool to catch up with him. When we come back, we'll get you ready for some racing tonight, Martinsville Speedway, and also Saturday money this week. We'll do that when we come back. It is Chasing Checkers, presented by the Nashville Super Speedway on ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Welcome back in Chasing Checkers, ESPN 102.5 The Game. We are streaming on the Game Nashville app. We are on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook as well. It's all presented by the Nashville Super Speedway. Father's Day weekend, June 18th, 19th, and 20th. You can get your tickets by going to NashvilleSuperspeedway.com or by calling 1-866-RACE-TICKS. Going to be a lot of fun, and I believe the Ally 400 is almost sold out, even after adding some seats. So be sure to get your tickets if you have not done that as of yet. 1-866-RACE-TICKS. All right, so Martinsville Speedway. That is coming up tonight. It is scheduled to. The weather may not be cooperating. The Xfinity race was postponed after 91 laps. They tried to get it back in last night. They kept trying to dry the track, and the rain just would not cooperate. Brandon Jones leads after 91 laps in that event. They're going to resume on Sunday. There is a chance too with the Cup Series that they might have to do it on Sunday as well. So we will see how it all goes. One of the guys that has been very successful at the Martinsville Speedway, especially as of late, is Martin Truex Jr. He is the defending winner of this race. Chase Elliott won in the fall, and then Truex had won the fall race the year before, but he commented on why he's so good at Martinsville.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's a tough place, and I think it's, it's a place that once you figure out some things, I think especially with your cars and how you like them to feel, and, if they don't change the tires too much, you can kind of, take that and run with it and continue to build on that success. So I think for us, it's just been really, figuring out what I needed in my car, and making it do the things I needed to do. And then, we've been able to kind of do that here the last few trips pretty consistently. So just hope that we can make that happen again. It's a tricky little place. It looks, I've said this before, that it always looks like Martinsville would be a pretty easy track just because it's, pretty small and, flat corners and things like that. But it's real technical, and there's a lot that goes on with the way the rubber gets down in the turns in the concrete, and that can change things really drastically. So we'll see what we get here this time around. But, last year, both races were really strong and felt like, we had a shot to win both of them. And of course we won the spring race. So look forward to going up to Martinsville and hopefully continuing that success.
Go.
Martin Truex Jr. has, as we said, been very good there. Let's take a quick look at the starting 10 for this race. The Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief 500, Joey Logano will be on the pole as a result of how NASCAR does their qualifying now with their qualifying formula. Denny Hamlin second, a 5-time winner at Martinsville. William Byron third, Ryan Blaney fourth. Chase Elliott, who won last fall en route to a championship, is fifth. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., after his big run at Bristol, finishing second, is sixth. Martin Truex Jr., who you just heard from, is seventh. Ryan Newman eighth. Kevin Harvick ninth. And Brad Keselowski, another short track racer, will roll off 10th. As we're running out of time, that means it's time to get to Sunday Money. Actually, I guess this is Saturday Money, as all odds are from BetMGM for the Blue Emu 500 at Martinsville. The favorite is Martin Truex Jr. at plus 400 because he is the defending race winner. So you can get the favorite Martin Truex Jr. at plus 400. But my picks, Denny Hamlin, who's a 5-time winner, a Virginia native. This is his hometown track. He is tied with Kurt Busch second with active drivers with 10 short track wins, including 5 at Martinsville. Kyle Busch leads the way with 16 total short track wins. He's won at Martinsville twice. 6 at Richmond, 8 at Bristol. But I have Denny Hamlin there. Chase Elliott, who won in the fall, plus 600, his only short track win in his young career. Brad Keselowski has 7 short track wins, including 2 at Martinsville at plus 600. And the long shot, Kevin Harvick, plus 1,400. He, too, has 7 short track wins, but only 1 on the paperclip. So there you go. Your Saturday Money. Hopefully they get this thing in tonight. That's what we all want. Nobody wants to wait till Sunday because we want to watch under the lights. That's what we want. And last year, because of COVID, this race was on like a Wednesday, which was even cooler. So there you go. We will do it again next week here on Chasing Checkers. My thanks to Justin Marks. It's all brought to you by the Nashville Superspeedway. Go to NashvilleSuperspeedway.com to get your tickets to the Ally 400 weekend. And for all the latest, you can check out ChasingCheckersRadio.com and TheGameNashville.com. We'll talk to you next Saturday at 9 here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
If you've missed any of today's show, just search Chasing Checkers on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform.